If martial law gets declared, you're going to have 10 minutes or less to react, and most people have no idea what to do. They'll seal the cities, they'll shut down the highways, they'll cut off your internet. You're going to have no way to call for help. Right now, you need to get 3 things ready: a go bag, an evacuation plan, and a safe place outside the city. If you don't have these 3 things, you're going to be trapped. Don't wait for the government to knock on your door. When martial law hits, survival goes to the ones who prepared early. If you want to know how to prepare, make sure to like and follow.
All right, Shalom to the elect of Israel. I want to start by giving all the praises, honor, and glory to whom it rightfully belongs, which is Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone that rule well. Peace, blessings, and salutations to the elect of Israel. And this lesson is going to this video that I came across today, basically saying, are you prepared in case it, being martial law, happens, okay? And, you know, man, just because I'm around a place where there's a lot of Jake at, right? Jake doesn't know. You probably ask Jake what martial law is. Majority of them probably can't even tell you, man. You know? They probably don't even know what it means, you know? But I wanted to, you know, do a lesson off of this, and also because he's saying, are you prepared? And he gives some of the scenarios of what would happen during martial law. And the ultimate thing is, look, you know, there's, you know, because basically, let me say this: if martial law gets declared and we in the midst of that, man, we basically in Jacob's trouble, okay? You know, they're basically going to be in Jacob's trouble if martial law gets declared, okay? But I do want to go through it just so, you know, we're familiar with things, all right? You know, but first off, let me get a scripture, because, you know, we ultimately got to realize who's the one that is bringing it and who has ultimate control. This is the book of Isaiah, chapter 45, verse 7. I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and create evil. I, Yahweh, do all these things. So the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, he is the one that brings the good times and the bad times, the peaceful times and the evil times, okay? He's the one that is in control of all of that. You know, not this devil. As is written, I'll get it. This is the book of Proverbs 21:1. The king's heart, which the Hebrew word for heart is lab, which means mind, is in the hand of Yahweh. As the rivers of water, he turneth it whithersoever he will. Okay? So these rulers' minds, all right, and Esau is the one that's in power over the earth right now. Remember Job 9:24. The earth is given into the hand of the wicked. Who's the wicked? Esau. Who is Esau? The so-called white man. So they're the ones in control over the earth. Okay? And they, all right, they are the ones, you know, and it's like in their minds, what I meant to say is their minds, all right, are in control. Their minds are controlled by Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai. Okay? So ultimately they're going, and the ruler's decisions affects his people. So ultimately the Lord's will is going to get done on the earth. Okay? So however they have it set up to where martial law gets declared, and we know these elites want all this stuff to go down so they could somehow bring in their NWO. Okay, because we know that's what they're trying to achieve, that NWO, all right, God status, all of that, which ultimately with that NWO, right, which you should know what that stands for by now, right, you're going to, you know, it involves people getting charagma, and with that charagma, it's going to give them, you know, God-like power over you, you know? So ultimately that's what they want, okay? But basically, right, you know, we know that things have to go down, and, you know, they want certain things to go down so, you know, it can achieve this, you know? Say martial law gets declared and, you know, things start to, you know, spiral out of control and all of that. But basically in this lesson, you know, because I have a feeling, you know, it is going to get declared sooner or later. Maybe sometime the rest of this year and next year, all right? I have a good feeling that it's going to happen, okay? But, I mean, should we talk about it, all right? It's in the scriptures, so yeah, it is going to happen, okay? But I wanted to get I just wanted to go into it a little bit, of what martial law is, okay? Just so we know. So bear with me because this internet be acting up sometimes. So this is martial law of Wikipedia, right? It says martial law is the replacement of civilian government, which civilian government has to do with things like, regular government, like people, civilians in government positions, all right? As well as, regular police, right? It says is the replacement of civilian government by military rule. So in other words, the military is going to the military is taking over. All right, these natural, civil laws and everything that we live by day to day, right? And then, in fact, you got the police around. And instead of all of that, the military is going to take over. Now the military is going to be deciding what goes on, how things are ran. Okay. You're basically going to be under military rule, as it says, not regular police rule. All right. Certain freedoms and liberties are going to be restricted or taken away from you. As we're about to get into, it says martial law is the replacement of civilian government by military rule and the suspension of civilian legal processes for military powers. Martial law can continue for a specified amount of time, right? It says, or indefinitely, which indefinitely means, basically without a time limit, so it can go on for however long. It says, and standard civil liberties may be suspended for as long as martial law continues. Okay? And what are civil liberties? Right? So let me just turn the Wi-Fi back on. Bear with me 1 second here. All right. It says civil liberties are basic rights and freedoms that protect individuals from government overreach. So basically, civil liberties are, these different freedoms we have now, without the government interfering it, or getting in the way of it. All right, it says primarily guaranteed by the U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights. They include freedoms such as speech, basically being able to say whatever you want, religion, being able to worship whatever you want, assembly, being able to gather, and the right to a fair trial, and are essentially restraints on government power. So these different things, okay, are what we are afforded here, here in America. They give us, basically have these things, the right or the freedoms to, freedom of speech and assembly and all of that. But when you have martial law intact, right, all of that is gone. That stuff is gone. Okay, that stuff is out the window. Now you can't say whatever you want. There is no freedom of speech. All right. There's no, freedom of religion. I mean, I want to look more into that, but definitely, no freedom of assembly. Things, will get more restricted. And the thing is, if it's enacted, yeah, military has control over that stuff. Now they, regulate who, assembling, can control whether you can assemble or not. And when we go to camp, that's what we do. What is the church? A church is a gathering, a calling out. And when we call out, most of us brothers were out there with what? A gathering of brothers, a church. Okay? That's what, you look up the word church in the Bible, it mostly goes into a gathering of Israelites, an assembly of Israelites. See, that's what you see when we're out there on the streets teaching. Okay? But if martial law is enacted, then we can't do this. You see? Then we can't do this. And we know once the mouths of the prophets are shut up, that's the famine of the word, and all hell is going to officially break loose. We're going to be in Jacob's trouble. So it's safe to say that if martial law is declared, we will be in Jacob's trouble. All right? which is looking like we're in the, beginning stages of it now. We got to see how this whole welfare thing unravels, right? But, these civil liberties, as it said, I'm gonna go back to the article. It says in standard civil liberties, right, which you just read, may be suspended for as long as martial law continues. Okay. And ultimately, these things are prophesied in the scriptures, man. Okay. Now, I also want to get what can happen. No, Salakia. What can the military do in martial law? It says, under martial law, the military can take over government functions to maintain order, with powers that may include imposing curfews. They might set up a rule to where, you have to be in the house by a certain time, controlling essential services, suspending civil liberties like habeas corpus, which you just went through those civil liberties, which that'll play a big part in really changing the atmosphere of, what people are used to living in, what these American people are used to living in. Everyone's, used to living in this free lifestyle. Well, if they suspend your civil liberties by imposing martial law, that's going to change the whole atmosphere. People, going to realize you can't say whatever you want. You got to be in the house by a certain time. You can't assemble. It's going to feel, you're going to feel the harshness. It says, and enforcing laws with military authority. See, with martial law, it's the military. It's not the police. Like the head brother War down here in New Jersey, the camp said, it's not to where, with the police, you can just, argue back and all of that. No, with the military, it's get down and lay down. You're going to follow what they say, or you're going to have some trouble. It's one or the other, whereas people are used to, bucking up against the police. All right, it says these powers are intended to be temporary, See, but when you talk about now at the end of this age, these things are biblical prophecy, man. Okay? These things are biblical prophecy. So, ultimately it's going to be the Lord's will being done. Let me get that real quick. Because people talk about, you might have some smart aleck out there that tries to say, oh, well, martial law, they can't do certain things, They can't, off you lethally. That's illegal. So what you're saying is wrong. Well, the scriptures say this. This is the book of Proverbs, chapter 20 and verse 24. Man's goings are of the Lord. How can a man then understand his own way? So you might intend to do something, but ultimately what you do is controlled by the Lord. You see? And the Lord's will is going to be done no matter what. So, yeah, it's going to get to that point where bloodshed is being spilt in the streets. Matter of fact, the scriptures say this. This is the book of Jeremiah, chapter 18, verse 22. Let a cry be heard from the houses when thou shalt bring a troop suddenly upon them. See? A troop, a soldier. For they have digged a pit to take me and hid snares for my feet. Okay? So ultimately, it's going. So when you talk about martial law at the end of this age, I could see, however it gets enacted, going on for indefinitely, however long, because it's going to be the Jacob's trouble. Things are going to get out of control. Okay, but it says these powers are intended to be talking about martial law are intended to be temporary and are typically invoked only when civilian authority has collapsed due to extreme emergencies like war, rebellion, or natural disaster. And right now they're talking about people, with this whole EBT thing, they're talking about how crime could unfold due to that. How it could go up, by a lot. You see? So, that could be a way for them to that could be a way for Trump to send in, to enact that, as as I have listed here, the Insurrection Act of 1807. these people have been talking about recently. It says the Insurrection Act of 1807 is the U.S. federal law that empowers the President of the U.S. to nationally deploy the U.S. military and to nationally deploy who? The U.S. military, and to federalize the National Guard units of the individual states in specific circumstances, such as the suppression of civil disorder, of insurrection, and of armed rebellion against the federal government of the U.S. All right? And that's what they're talking about with this whole thing, this EBT thing, Jake, we're talking about, they're going to take from the government and all of that stuff, they're going to take from the government, or they're just going to steal, rather, you see? And another Jake said this stuff could cause riots, because Jake said, if they don't have, it's a video, Lord willing, I'll post it up after this, but it's a video on there that says it. Okay, it's a video of Jake saying how people, it's basically going to turn to like the have and the have-nots and stuff. This Jake was just saying where stuff could lead to. Okay, but think about that, man. Riots and all that broke out due to not having EBT and all that stuff. Just where these stuff could lead to. Okay, Trump could, if he was enact the Insurrection Act, that's basically martial law could happen from that. Simple and plain. Okay, simple and plain. Martial law could happen from that, without a doubt. All right, but wanted to read some more on this. So it says military powers and controls. Assume control, military leaders. So this is what can happen under martial law. All right? And bear with me 1 second, man. There's people around me. So, I'm going to just read it in code. Practice makes perfect, right? It says assume control. M, you know what this word means. Salaki, not that one. This one. M leaders can assume.
It's closed?
I think so. But it says M leaders can assume executive, legislative, and judicial power, taking over roles normally held by civilian authorities. Okay, so that means instead of the people in your natural branches of government, you would have military leaders there. It's going to be ultimate military control. It says suspend laws and rights. They may suspend some or all civil liberties. You know what that is now. Freedom of speech, freedom of press, using the media to record and all that. So you try to put your phone up, they snatch it right down and put you on the ground with it. It says, including the right to habeas corpus, which is the right to be brought before a judge, enforce laws, which means military personnel can enforce laws with the possibility of civilians being subject to military tribunals, or in other words, court-martial for defying martial law. So say someone's out past curfew, or doesn't follow what the orders given under martial law, right? Someone defies it, doesn't follow it. Instead of being brought before a regular court, they would have to go through basically military court, military law, military tribunal. It says impose restrictions. Actions can include imposing curfews, media blackouts, and restrictions on travel and public gatherings. You see that? And that's something like, man, actions can include imposing curfews. You got to be inside by a certain time. Media blackouts. Another thing what people don't understand with martial law is that, because I was just reading up on this today, if they enact that, they can take control over the internet, censor certain things under the guise of trying to maintain order and restrict any dissidents. Okay? You see? And so if they do that and censor stuff, you think we could really keep putting up lessons during that time? You think we could really, do that? No. We're going to be in Jacob's trouble because the prophets are not going to be out there speaking and teaching anymore like they are now. You see? It says in restrictions on travel and public gatherings. Come on now, man. Because what did the scriptures say? Proverbs 1:20. Wisdom crieth without, she uttereth her voice in the streets. She crieth in the chief place of concourse. Right? So wisdom crieth without. Without means outside. She uttereth her voice in the streets. Why? Because the men of the Lord are out there on the streets teaching and prophesying. All right, the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of the scriptures. And it says she crieth in the chief place of concourse. And what is concourse? Right? Concourse is basically an area where there's a lot of hustle and bustle, you know, like a downtown area or something like that. See, but if you have martial law in place, you can't do these things. See? In the openings of the gates in the city she uttereth her word, saying, all right? It says control resources. The military may commandeer businesses and control essential facilities like hospitals. Let's regulate daily life. They can also regulate wages and working conditions, man, and require mandatory fingerprinting or identification from civilians. See that? So they can basically make up laws and things, and you know, as they see fit. So just say, you know, say we're under martial law somehow, and then XYZ happens, and then somehow they, you know, implement the Charagma to be made mandatory. I mean, brothers are going to be rejoicing at that time too, because we know we at the end, all right, which we know now, okay, but that time for sure we're really gonna, you know, understand really at the end, okay. But you know, so if they can regulate and just, you know, make up laws like that, they can definitely make up laws, you know, requiring setting up checkpoints and things like that, okay, setting up checkpoints and all of that stuff, all right, you know, saying you gotta come down here to get, you know, tripped up, you gotta go here and there, you can't travel here without being tripped up, etc., etc. And it's talking about travel. It's under imposed restrictions. It says and restrictions on travel. And what do the scriptures say? You brothers know what I'm probably about to get. 2 Ezra chapter 15 and verse 17. A man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able. See? And for different reasons. You know, one of the reasons being the next verse. For because of their pride, the cities shall be troubled, the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. Because there's going to be a whole lot of chaos going on within a city. You know? So that could be one case. A man can't go to a city or go through a city to get to another one. All right? Or leave his city because, you know, there's a whole lot of trouble in the next city or whatever. You know? Or you can also, you know, or a man shall desire to go into a city and not be able because the city is on lockdown. See? Restrictions. Imposing restrictions on travel. You see? So things get a lot stricter, man. You see? And, you know, you could just see, like, with these people, man, today, these people, especially some of Jake, they ain't going for it, okay? They ain't going for it, man. Ultimately, it's the Lord causing this stuff to happen. Okay, so his will can be brought forth, because at the end of this age, it's going to be a lot of hell. It's going to be a lot of, you know, judgment, destruction, chaos going on, and anarchy. It's going to be a lot, man. You know, all the way leading up to the point to where Yahweh Shai returns. That's where the head of all of this is going. The head of all this, you know, these just tension in the air that everyone feels. This is where all this stuff is leading to. You know, Yahweh Shai's return. All right, you know, that's why you see World War III brewing up, the Charagma, civil unrest around the world, man. Because all of this stuff is leading up to that point to where Yahweh Shai is going to return and set everything straight. Okay, so like brothers say, it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. All right, you know. Or another thing. So let's listen to this video again, because this wasn't the only point I wanted to get. So now we have, you know, an understanding of what martial law is. The military is in control. They're in positions of power. You know, they regulate daily life. They can impose restrictions on gathering, what you can say. You know, your regular civil liberties as a civilian are suspended. You know, you can't do or say certain things. You can't go certain places. You know, instead of, you know, I mean, police might still be around, but they have to take orders from the military. The military is in charge. And under martial law, you know, you have to follow what they say or face, you know, getting maybe put down for good, if you know what I'm saying, or maybe taken to a detention facility somewhere, And also remember, they got that red list, that blue list and that red list, man. Red list being those who basically they want to take out when this, they declare martial law and all of that stuff. And the blue list being people that people that aren't threats to this system that they deem as threats, So now we understand what martial law is, but now also I wanted to get into this part. Let's listen to it again.
If martial law gets declared, you're going to have 10 minutes or less to react, and most people have no idea what to do. They'll seal the cities, they'll shut down the highways, they'll cut off your internet.
They'll seal the cities. A man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able. They'll shut off the internet. More famine of the word.
You're going to have no way to call for help. Right now, you need to get three things ready. A go bag, an evacuation plan, and a safe place outside the city.
You say you need to get all those things together, right? This is the book of Proverbs 21:31. The horse is prepared against the day of battle, but safety is of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai. See? You can prepare all you want, but the ultimate, safety and deliverance through chaos and all of that comes from the Lord. Prepare all you want. You can have it. What happens if, you got a safety plan or an evacuation plan or a to-go bag, and then you get stopped on the way out? Now what? See? Let's listen though. They said that's the point I wanted to get him talking about preparing. Listen.
If you don't have these three things, you're going to be trapped. Don't wait for the government to knock on your door. When martial law hits, survival goes to the ones who prepared early. If you want,
those who are prepared early. Let's listen to that again.
Survival goes to the ones who prepared early. If you want to know how to prepare, make sure to like it. Law hits, survival goes to the ones who prepared early. If you want,
those who are prepared early. Seek the Lord early. That's the ones who are prepared early. Seeking the Lord early.
Want to know how to prepare? Make sure to like and follow.
Yeah, liking and following this dude is not gonna get anybody far, man. Okay, liking his what does liking an Instagram post have to do with, and following have to do with being prepared? What? But let me just get it, because I'm going to have to dip in a minute. So this is Proverbs chapter 1, verse 33. But whoso hearkeneth unto me, unto Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, shall dwell safely and shall be quiet from fear of evil. You see that? That's the preparation. Seeking the Lord. Whoso listens, to his men, his prophets, which the prophets are the mouthpiece of the Lord. So basically, through the men of the Lord is talking to his people. Okay? Through the apostles and elders of great millstone and the like-minded brothers under them. That's the Lord, talking to his people, literally. The prophets are the mouthpiece of the Lord. So, with that, right, let's taking heed to what the prophets are saying, right? That is the true preparation, okay? Basically getting yourself right with Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai while you still can. That's the preparation. It's the book of Proverbs, chapter 22, verse 3. A prudent man foreseeth the evil. A wise man, he's going to see evil. A wise man sees evil afar off. It says, and hideth himself. He does stuff to get himself prepared for when the danger comes, right? He moves himself out of the way. And ultimately, we know that the Lord is the one bringing the danger, right? And the Lord knows everyone's preparations plans, that people have. So you don't think the Lord is going to the Lord's going to get you. See, but, you're preparing yourself, listening to the prophet. See, whoso hearkeneth unto me shall dwell safely in fear from fear of evil. Listening to the men of the Lord and what they're telling you, the message they're giving you. You see, that's how you get yourself prepared, not by carnal means. See, he says, but the simple pass on and are punished. And these people, our Jake has been passing by the camp for long periods of time, man, just scoffing, even at that, stopping just to scoff. So they're not prepared for when this stuff goes down, because we ain't going to be out there forever. You know, they so used to scoffing, but what are you going to do when the words we talk about actually start happening and you're living in them? You know, because we don't talk our own message. We talk the words of Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai, whether they will hear or whether they will forbear. So you pick which side you want to be on. You want to be the one that hears or the one that forbears. The one that hears, the Lord said, going to dwell safely. Okay? The one that forbears, not so, buddy. I'm ending with this though. You know, so the real preparation is turning to Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai. Because the Lord is the one that's going to protect his elect. Let me get that real quick. It's the book of Job, chapter 5, and verse 20. In famine he shall redeem me from death. The Lord's going to feed his men when this famine comes. And in war from the power of the sword. The Lord's going to protect his men from these looters, these robbers, these marauders, and these troops out here that, you know, that's going to be marching the streets and all of that. The Lord's going to protect his men from that. You see? There's protection. Amongst all this chaos, there's going to be protection. And it's only for the elect. Okay? Alright, so actually, let me go this way. Alright? You know, so... oh yeah. So let me get this now. I'll end it with this. This is the book, Second Ezra. So this is dark out. And once again, I'm around people, so it's hard to see where people are at. You know? Just, you know, we got to be low-key. You know? When we, you know, do these lessons sometimes. This is 2 Ezra chapter 9, verses 7 through 8. And everyone that shall be saved and that shall be able to escape by his works and by faith, see, the works they have in this truth, in having, you know, in their faith, it says, whereby ye have believed shall be preserved from the said perils. So the people that have these things, they're going to be preserved. They're going to be kept safe from the said perils. Perils means danger. Martial law is a danger. Okay? It's a danger. So the Lord is saying, and only the elect are going to have these. So ultimately, you know, if you're, you know, you would like brothers out there, all right, you know, you're going to be preserved from all this chaos that's coming. You see? So that's the preparation right there. It says, and shall see my salvation in my land and within my borders, for I have sanctified them for me from the beginning, the elect, which means chosen from the foundation of the world, from the beginning, man. You see? So brothers, y'all are good, man. You know, we're good. Lord willing, we be of the elect, we good. So this thing starts going down out here. Hey, man, it's just showing us that it's basically about time to go home. Yahweh Shai is on his way, man. So keep the faith. With that, giving all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai. Bahasham Rachakodash, double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone and well. Peace, blessings, and salutations to the elect. Shalom to the elect.